Welcome back to No Huddle, everyone, and welcome to my Week 12 NFL review. We got 14 games to cover the week before Thanksgiving. Happy holidays, everyone. But like I said, let's just get started because we got a lot to cover because twists and turns just continue with this season. Starting with Thursday Night Football, we got the Texans beating the Bills 23-19 in what was a pretty much trap game for the Bills. They fell for the trap. And to be honest, I don't even think the Bills offense played that bad. James Cook had a really good game. Josh Allen, I think, did what he could. Wasn't perfect, but I think he made some good plays. But he couldn't do anything because his little offensive line was made out of scotch tape because the Texans defense had a career-high 8 sacks on him. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, all those guys from the pass rush were absolutely feasting. Josh Allen had to get the ball out in around 0.2 seconds because otherwise he was on the ground. And in the end, Davis Mills in the offense didn't really do much, but it was just that the Bills couldn't get anything going. They had a kick return touchdown, but apart from that, they only scored 12 offensive points. They failed on fourth down when they were near field goal range. You could have argued they could have taken the points. And then on the final drive with Josh Allen trying to do too much, I believe he had the tight end wide open. Instead, he forced the ball and ended up getting intercepted, that being his second on the day. It's very alarming for the Bills considering they're now 7-4 and considering how some of the other wildcard teams are playing, like the Texans, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. There is kind of a world where the Bills maybe miss the postseason and the Texans might actually get into the playoffs over them. Shout out to the Texans, who I believe have now won 4 or 5 straight games. I'm not saying there's a QB controversy in Houston, but Davis Mills is 3-0, so that's the only thing I'm going to say. Man of the match easily goes to the Texans defense, specifically Will Anderson, who had an absolutely monster game, around 2.5 sacks. I don't think he gets talked about as one of the best defensive players in the game, despite him being drafted so highly and only 2 years ago. He's so good, and I expect him to lead the Texans defense to glory, at least for many years to come. Shout out to Houston and Buffalo. You better right the ship, because otherwise it's going to cost you. Now we move on to Sunday afternoon, where we got the Chiefs coming back against the Colts 23-20. It was probably the most frustrating game of the entire week. The Colts offense got completely nullified, almost to the level in which they were contained against the Steelers. They really couldn't do anything. Daniel Jones started out really accurate, but then started missing throws left and right. They kind of got away from what they were doing best. They kind of stopped getting the ball to Jonathan Taylor, who was also bottled up pretty well. And overall, I thought they were still going to be able to hold on because the Chiefs' offense once again looked out of sync. Mahomes, in my opinion, did not have a great game outside of when he played in overtime. I believe he was missing throws. He threw a bad interception. And apart from a Rashee Rice catch around the third quarter, their offense couldn't get anything going. Luckily, Kareem Hunt actually had one of the better games in his later stage of his career, probably his best game since he was in Cleveland back in 2021. And then the Chiefs just started scoring more and more points thanks to Harrison Butker. And then they ended up forcing overtime where they forced the Colts to go 3-and-out. And then the Chiefs ended up going on a long drive to get a field goal at the end of the game. Really frustrating for someone who wanted the Chiefs to get out of the playoffs quickly. And the Colts, I think they'll be fine in the long run. But with this hard stretch of games coming up, it would have been nice if they won against the Chiefs to improve to 9-2. Now they're 8-3. And to be honest, they do have to watch their backs because they play Houston next. And if they lose, they could start losing control of the AFC South. So that's just something to monitor. But shout out to the Chiefs, I guess. Their man of the match for me is Kareem Hunt. I could have given it to Mahomes, but for me, again, he didn't really play all that well. And I think that it was thanks to Kareem Hunt that their offense actually looked semi-competent and that they were actually able to get a good groove rolling. So shout out to the Chiefs again, because I think without this win, they would have probably been staring at the face of elimination. Now I got the Seahawks beating the Titans 30-24 in what was probably the fake comeback of the week. The Titans were down 30-6 in the fourth quarter, and then they scored a couple of points thanks to a punt return touchdown, and I believe Cam Ward had another touchdown pass. It was kind of a game, they had an onside kick to try and get the ball back, but in the end, it was all for naught. The Seahawks had a really good bounce-back game after a very sloppy showing against the Rams. JSN has been such a good receiver this season. He's on pace for 2,000 yards. Even with the extra game, he's on pace for 1,900 yards. That's just insane from JSN. This is one of the best receiver seasons that we've seen over the last 15 years. Sam Darnold, he continues to be great. As long as he keeps throwing the ball to JSN, good things will happen. And again, they weren't really going to face any big threats considering they were facing the Titans. I think Cam Ward had a solid game. He continues to show signs of promising talent, but I think this year is basically just a wash. I believe they're 1-9 or 1-10 even. I think they might be out of the playoffs as well. They might be one of the first teams that were eliminated. I just hope that they actually don't butcher this high draft pick that they're going to get and actually get Cam Ward some help, whether that's in the offensive line or the receiver or the defense, because the Titans, they have a lot of holes to fill up. But regarding the Seahawks, once again, my man of the match does go to JSN, just because, once again, he's been so dominant. And the Seahawks, they're still in the race for the NFC West. Now, yes, they will have to beat the Rams at home in around, week 16 or in one of the final weeks of the season. So if they show up to that test, then I think they can maybe snatch the division from Los Angeles. And now we got the NFC North matchup between the Packers and the Vikings, in which the Packers beat them 23-6. This game was pretty much never close. The Packers defense completely stopped anything that the Vikings wanted to do. Not that the Vikings offense is very threatening with quote-unquote 9 at the helm. J.J. McCarthy continues to be maybe the worst quarterback in the league outside, even Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler has played better this season than J.J. McCarthy. He had a worse passer rating than if he just spiked the ball or threw an incomplete pass on every single throw. That's just embarrassing. Again, the Packers didn't have to do much. The running back who played really well in the absence of Josh Jacobs, sure, he had a decent game, but Jordan Love didn't do anything mildly impressive. It was just that the pass rush kept getting to J.J. McCarthy, and he can't get the ball to his good receivers. He can't get the ball to Jordan Addison or to Justin Jefferson. Again, the fact that Justin Jefferson is looking mid in a way in this offense, that's very alarming. If it weren't for Carson Wentz not having a shoulder or him dying on the field, I would probably bench J.J. McCarthy. It's just the fact that you don't have any other quarterback and you're basically riding and dying with this guy. Shout out to the Packers, I guess, because you're able to get a good division win ahead of a really, really tough schedule where you play the Bears twice, if I'm correct, and then you also play the Lions on Thanksgiving, so it's nice to get a nice, comfortable win here. Man of the match for me goes to Micah Parsons, a.k.a. the whole Packers defense, where I believe they had 5 sacks on J.J. McCarthy. They picked him off twice, which is actually kind of rare for their secondary. And overall, I think they looked really good. Good test ahead of their big matchup on Thanksgiving, like I said, and for the Vikings, your season is over because with this cutthroat division, you can't have the worst quarterback in it. Now I got the Ravens beating the Jets 23-10. I didn't really get much of this game. I think this game wasn't really all that close most of the time. The Jets went up 7-0, but again, I really have no faith that the Ravens were going to win. I guess it's kind of promising that they can win while Lamar plays relatively sloppy. He hasn't really played at his best in the last 2 games, and even Derrick Henry was kind of bottled up, even though I believe he had 2 touchdowns. But it was once again the theme of the Ravens defense actually stepping up and winning them the game, which I believe is the 3rd straight week where that happens. It's not impressive to lock up the Jets, but Tyrod Taylor didn't have a good game. They forced a really key Breece Hall fumble. I believe they took away the ball from Tyrod Taylor. I think they had 2 interceptions. The only alarming thing is that Kyle Hamilton did step out with an injury, which is a big blow to their secondary and their defense as a whole, especially for a team that's about to potentially face Joe Burrow on Thanksgiving at home, who is known to light them up. Could be alarming, but in the big picture, I think there's a really good win. They finally take first place in the AFC North, thanks to another team that we're going to talk about in a bit. And for the Jets, you won 2 straight games against the Browns and the Bengals, but now you've lost 2 straight. Again, this season is basically over. You're basically just going through the motions, seeing what you have in the rest of your talent, and then hopefully you can draft a quarterback that you hopefully don't ruin next season. Man of the match, like I said, goes to the Ravens defense because no one on the offense really played great. Lamar, it is kind of alarming that he hasn't really played his MVP self over the last 3 weeks. And Derrick Henry still looks kind of washed, I'm not going to lie. But the fact that the defense is going from historically bad to actually above average, that is really good for the Ravens' high playoff aspirations. Now we got the Giants narrowly losing to the Lions 27-34 in what was maybe the best game of the entire week. The Giants started out winning 10-0 thanks to some really good throws from Jameis Winston, who probably had one of the best games of this late stage of his career. But then the Lions finally woke up. They started to respond on offense, mainly Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra. Both of them had insane games. But it looked like the Giants were one step ahead of them the entire time. And I thought they were just going to steal the win when I believe they were up 20-17. And then they tried a trick play touchdown where Gunnar Olszewski threw a ball to Jameis Winston. And Jameis Winston proceeded to stiff arm and juke a Lions linebacker into the end zone. And I thought, okay, it's just their day. Jameis Winston is going to carry them with a victory, even though he had thrown an interception. I thought it didn't matter. They were going to upset the Lions. But then after the Lions got a field goal, or the Lions ended up getting a touchdown actually, the Giants made the questionable decision up 3 to go for it on 4th down from the 1-yard line. I get what they were trying to do. They were just trying to kill the Lions off, but it ended up biting them because they ended up failing. Then the Lions ended up driving to field goal range, and on the first play of overtime, Jahmyr Gibbs took it, 60, 70 yards all the way to the house for a touchdown, and then the defense actually clamped up and was able to stop Jameis Winston. I think this was a great electric game. Kind of concerning for the Lions defense that they got carved up by Jameis Winston of all people. But I mean, he is a flamethrower, so I guess that is expected. Man of the match easily goes to Jahmyr Gibbs. If it weren't for Jonathan Taylor's borderline historic season, people would be talking about Jahmyr Gibbs more, considering he's having almost a comparable season. I believe he's almost like at 13 scrimmage yards. He's had multiple games where he's had over 200 scrimmage yards. I believe he had like 3 touchdowns. He's also great in the receiving game. Like, he's honestly such a special player, and I would make the argument that he is the best running back in his draft class, even ahead of Bijan. Shout out to the Lions, again, ahead of a really big test against Green Bay on Thanksgiving. They get a really good win. And for the Giants, I believe they became the first team to get eliminated from playoff contention. So, hey, you're finally first in something. Now I got the Steelers falling short to the Bears, 28-31. Very underwhelming game. The game was like really close score-wise, but like I don't think many interesting things happened. Caleb Williams in the offense actually showed up really well. Apart from that one fumble in the end zone that I believe might have led to a Steelers touchdown, actually. They started clicking. Caleb Williams had a couple touchdowns, had a couple big runs. I think he's having a really good season. And I think he's actually on pace for 4,000 yards, which is really promising. That's going to be historic Bears quarterback season. But talking about the Steelers, Mason Rudolph got to start. Aaron Rodgers wasn't able to play against his child franchise. But Mason Rudolph didn't really play all that great. I feel like they do need Aaron Rodgers to be back for them to be, quote-unquote, the best version of themselves. In the big picture, this really sucks because you've officially been hawked down by Baltimore. You're both 6-5, but I believe they own some sort of tiebreaker. Now, like, they basically need to win out the Steelers, or at least win like 4 of their last 5 games, however many they have left, including potentially sweeping Baltimore in the division series. That's probably not going to happen, so it looks like the Steelers might be on the outside looking in the playoff race once the season ends, which kind of sucks considering how promising the season started. But, I mean, I guess shout out to the Bears, who now moved to like the 2nd or 3rd seed in the NFC. They now have the same record as Philadelphia and are only 1 game behind the Los Angeles Rams for the number 1 seed. So that Black Friday game, that one's going to be big. Man of the match for me goes to the Bears defense. Again, no one on the offense for the Bears particularly played great. I could have given it to Caleb Williams, but having an interception, I believe they had a couple sacks as well, only allowing like 21 points on offense. Shout out to the Bears defense, who, if they keep playing like this, they could make some noise in the postseason. Now we got the Patriots narrowly escaping the Bengals 26-20. It was probably the most surprising game of the early window, in which like this game was way closer than it should have been. Drake May finally had a quote-unquote sloppy game. I think he played good, but I don't think he was particularly great. He had a really bad pick six, and he didn't really carve up the Bengals defense as well as he should have. And Joe Flacco was actually throwing the ball really well. He was throwing to T. Higgins without Jamar Chase, some guy that I forgot the name of. Obviously, you had Yoshivas and some other guy who cooked Christian Gonzalez. Like, I thought the Bengals were actually going to squeak this one out. But then the Patriots ended up getting ahead, and I believe they just like kept going for it on 4th down, or they got like there was a series where like they got the ball at the 1 yard line, then they ended up being backed up, and then they got the ball at the 1 again, and then they ended up failing on 4th and goal. Like this was a really sloppy showing from the Patriots. I hope that this is their wake up call and they don't have to lose to get a wake up call, because this had all the makings of a trap game. Now New England was luckily able to escape out of it, but if they don't learn from some of the mistakes that they made, they could fall later in the season. Now, as for the Bengals, they're 3-8. The fact that Joe Burrow is coming back when they're 3-8 and about to face Baltimore, like, I personally don't see the point of it. Yes, theoretically, you can win out against the Steelers and the Ravens and whoever you play left and technically have a chance at a wild card or maybe even winning the North. But, like, Joe Burrow isn't even that good coming back from injury, so I don't get the point of throwing him into the fire. Like, I just don't see it. Man of the match for me goes to Hunter Henry, who had one of the best games of his career. 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown, was the ultimate security blanket for Drake May, and he honestly played like one of the greatest tight ends in Patriots history, like what Brady said earlier in the year. I mean, shout out to the Patriots, who now improved to 10-2. They have the best record in the league. Just fix up some of these performances, because you're not going to win the playoffs if you play like that. And now we move on to the late window, where we got the Browns beating the Raiders 24-10. This game was pretty dull. We saw the debut of Shedeur Sanders, which, going on a bit of a tangent here, Shedeur Sanders, I think he played well. I don't think he played all that great. Like, it was the Raiders. Let's not hype up this performance as if he had like 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. I think he can be good. I think he should be starting for the rest of the season. And I honestly think if he keeps playing like this, maybe invest in him next season and actually make him the starter. Because along with that good defense, they could actually be frisky. And speaking of the defense, they did get 10 sacks, so obviously that contributed a lot to Shedeur getting his win. But again, like, I think Shedeur was fine. He wasn't good, he wasn't bad, he was just average. And I guess with what we saw of Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel this season with Browns quarterbacks, that's pretty much all you can ask for. As for the Raiders, your season is over. You fired Chip Kelly. You might as well bench Geno Smith or just don't let him die out there, please. Like, spare him for his sake. Pete Carroll's probably going to be gone. This is probably going to be a quick 1-year era. Ashton Genty, obviously, I think he's a really good player. He's just getting killed behind that offensive line that obviously allowed 10 sacks. The Browns defense easily gets to the man of the match, specifically Myles Garrett, who now has 18 sacks in 11 games. He's on pace for 27 sacks. That is absolutely mental. That's bat crazy. Like, that's a historic defensive player of the year season. Honestly, I don't know if anyone else is going to get a vote because that man, he's been absolutely dominant. I mean, shout out to the Browns, I guess. They just worsened their draft pick with this win, but I mean, I guess it's promising that you have something in Shedeur Sanders. Now I got the Jaguars narrowly beating the Cardinals 27-24. This was one of the more sloppy, close games of the year. Trevor Lawrence, you see him, he threw 3 touchdowns, if I'm correct, had some good runs, but he also threw 3 interceptions, which is just the bad dual nature of Trevor Lawrence. The fact that he can have such good plays, but that's such boneheaded plays, it just makes him perfectly average. With how much money he's making and with the aspirations that the Jaguars have, that's not a very good thing, the fact that he's average. But overall, the Cardinals actually had a lead for most of this game. Then the Jaguars were able to come back. Then they tried to throw the game away after going for it on 4th down when you could just kick the field goal and gone up by 6. But then Jacoby Brissett led a very heroic game-tying drive to force the game into overtime, where then the Jaguars kicked the game-winning field goal, and then the Cardinals couldn't do anything after that. I think the Cardinals, they're very frisky, but like the problem is that this is just what they've been for like the last few years. Like, they're just a team that can just pull off an upset every once in a while. When with this Jonathan Gannon regime, it's been going on for 3 years now. I don't really see it going anywhere. Again, the fact that Jacoby Brissett controls the offense better than Kyler Murray, that just shows that they need to go into a full rebuild. Whether that's changed in coach, I don't know. But I feel like they're in kind of a purgatory state right now, the Cardinals, and that's kind of the worst place to be in the NFL. But for the Jaguars, I think the man of the match does go to their defense. A lot of good defensive units in this week. I believe they sacked Jacoby Brissett like 6 times, and I believe they also had like a turnover, and I wasn't going to give it to ETN or Trevor Lawrence because they did not play well at all. The defense won them this game, and the defense kept them in the playoff race, not Trevor Lawrence and the offense. And now we got the Philly Eagles choking away a 21-point lead and losing to the Cowboys 24-21. And it was probably the second most frustrating result of this entire week, with me rooting for the Eagles because I picked them to win. Their offense clicked in the first half, or I should say maybe even the first quarter. They obviously jumped out to a 21-0 lead. Jalen Hurts looked great. He was running all over the place. He was throwing dimes to A.J. Brown. And it looked like the Cowboys were just going to be dead because they kept committing self-inflicted errors after self-inflicted errors. Having a roughing the kicker penalty. I believe they also had a fumble. Dak Prescott threw a brutal interception at the goal line. Should have had another pass intercepted. They went for it on 4th down and failed. Like, I thought this was just going to be a blowout because the Cowboys just kept getting in their own way. But then they finally started polishing their mistakes. They started playing some really good football. Dak Prescott ran for a touchdown, and he threw for 2 others. I believe he threw one to the tight end, and then I forgot what the other one was for. But, I mean, the Cowboys just started clicking more, and then the Eagles' offense went static again. Kevin Patullo, for me, needs to get fired. He's not going to because they're on a short week. But if they play bad on offense once again against the Bears, then it's time to let him go. Because this amount of talent, Saquon did not play well. He also fumbled. The connection with A.J. Brown, like the only thing that was working was just deep bombs to Devontae Smith. But apart from that, they couldn't get anything consistent going. And then they ended up muffing a punt. The Cowboys, they let him off the hook because they ended up failing on 4th down. But then the Eagles did once again nothing. Tom Brady said the N-word. And then Dak Prescott just ended up leading them into game-winning field goal range where Aubrey ended up kicking the game winner. It was really disappointing for the Eagles because this was a win that could have cemented them as first place in the NFC East. But they keep the Cowboys alive. I still think they're going to win the division. But, like, if their offense keeps playing like this, like, they're not even going to win a playoff game, which is very alarming for how talented Philly is. Man of the match for me goes to George Pickens because I didn't talk about him in my review, but like George Pickens, I believe, had like 9 targets, and he caught all 9 for like 140 yards and a touchdown. And with CeeDee Lamb being so bad in this game, they needed him to step up, and he definitely did. So shout out to the Cowboys and Philly. You choked. And now we got the Falcons beating the Saints 24-10, and it was probably one of the more forgettable games of the entire season. I'm not even going to act like I watched this game all that much. Like the Falcons, I think they were just ahead of them most of the time. Tyler Shuck tried to make some plays. I think Taysom Hill even had a pass. It's kind of weird seeing him still in the league. I feel like he's like 40 at this point. I mean, I don't really know what to say. Like Kirk Cousins got the start, played all right, didn't play like he was 55 years old. Bijan had a decent game. And yeah, I mean, I guess they keep I don't think they're in the playoff race, but I guess it's just better that you win more games because you don't have your first round pick, and we don't want the Rams to have a top 5 pick while also being great. So shout out to the Falcons, I guess, for that. Man of the match goes to the defense, predictably, once again. I believe they had like 5 sacks on Shuck, and I think they also turned the ball over once. And once again, no one on the offense played great. Like, not a lot of standout players this week, just a lot of good units on defense. So again, shout out to Atlanta. And for New Orleans, you had your little grace period with Tyler Shuck, but it turns out that he's Tyler Suck. And now we move on to Sunday Night Football, where the Rams beat the Buccaneers 27. Hey, wait a minute. What is this? There we go. I gotta fire whoever did that. The Rams beat the Buccaneers 34-7 on Sunday night. PTSD aside, this game was absolutely never close in the slightest. The Rams jumped out to a 7-0 lead, and then they proceeded to pick off Baker Mayfield on what was one of the weirdest pick sixes of all time. I feel like the guy was down by contact, or like his knee was on the ground, but that's besides the point. Like, the Rams just jumped on them. They were up 21-0. Then Baker Mayfield threw a touchdown, and then he proceeded to get hurt while I believe the Rams just added 10 more points. They added 3 more points after halftime. Stafford was incredibly efficient. And, I mean, there's really nothing to talk about with the Rams. The fact that they're so dominant, like, they're definitely maybe the team to beat in the NFC just because they're just so good. Stafford is playing like an MVP level. He's my man of the match easily. He's just been so efficient. He's on pace for 46 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. Like, that's just crazy. But speaking on the Buccaneers, they're now, I believe they've lost like 3 games in a row. They were 6-2 coming out of the bye week, and I believe they might even lose 3 straight. I think they're on a 3-game losing streak. Todd Bowles completely mismanaged Baker Mayfield because now he's injured again. And this was the injury that kept him out in 2021, or at least it made him play bad in 2021, which means you do not want to trot out Baker Mayfield. Now Teddy Bridgewater has to roll in. And they're lucky that the Panthers are also very incompetent, because if it weren't for them having a weak division, they would be in danger of losing the South. Now, luckily, I don't think that's going to happen because I think they're too talented and the other teams suck too much. But Tampa Bay, it looks like their season is unraveling before their eyes. They just really have to hope that they get healthy soon. And ending the week, we got the 49ers beating the Panthers 20-9. It was a pretty forgettable Monday Night Football game. Brock Purdy got the start and proceeded to throw 3 interceptions in the first half. Now, luckily, like I said before, the Panthers are such an incompetent franchise that they could do nothing for it. Bryce Young also threw 3 interceptions, so that's 5 interceptions combined by the first and last overall pick of their respective drafts. I mean, nothing really happened in this game. Like, Christian McCaffrey got hella touches and once again had hella yards. He had a touchdown, I believe. Tet had a really nice touchdown catch that kept the Panthers in the game. Then they ended up failing the 2-point try. And, I mean, the 49ers were really never in danger of losing this game, even with Purdy turning the ball over left and right. So I guess it's very promising that they're now 8-4. They're technically still in the division race, but with losing to the Rams, and I believe they still have a meeting with the Seahawks left, they really have to step up while being so injured to maybe sneak into the playoffs. I think they could maybe be a wild card team, but with all the injuries, like I said, I don't think they're going to make it very far. Man of the match goes to Christian McCaffrey. Probably the worst man of the match that I've given Christian McCaffrey, because I don't think he was incredible. He wasn't all that efficient, but he still had a touchdown. He's still the engine of the offense. So when the offense starts clicking, it's because he starts clicking. Honestly, if they had a better record and he had slightly more efficiency on the run, he could be an MVP talks. That's how good he's been. But shout out to the Niners for improving to 8-4, and the Panthers, you had a chance to maybe take over the South with the Buccaneers losing, but no, you blew it. And now to the end of week superlatives. My player of the week goes to Jahmyr Gibbs. With how little the standout players were in week 12, I think Jahmyr Gibbs was absolutely incredible. He had he had 260 scrimmage yards and 3 touchdowns. Was the absolute engine. And like I said before, he needs to get more respect put on his name, because with how underwhelming some of the other guys are playing, like Bijan, Saquon, and Derrick Henry, honestly, it might be Jonathan Taylor and him. like, I think he might be the second best running back in the league. I know you have other guys like James Cook being there, but I just think Jahmyr Gibbs, he's so special. Like, he's a Hall of Fame level talent, in my opinion. And I only had this as a one-time thing because there was just so much idiot level stuff in week 11, but I decided to just make this a common trend because so much more stupid stuff keeps happening in the NFL. So my Hall of Idiots goes to the Philadelphia Eagles, who choked a 21-0 lead, CeeDee Lamb, who proceeded to have 3 more drops even if they won. That's 7 drops combined in 2 games against Philadelphia. J.J. McCarthy for doing irreparable damage to the number 9. The Raiders offensive line for giving up 10, that's double-digit sacks to the Browns. And Derek Barnes, a guy who got mossed, juked, and stiff-armed by Jameis Winston, by over 30-year-old Jameis Winston on a touchdown catch. Doesn't get much more embarrassing than that. But yeah, all these guys, you guys are the idiots of Week 12. And that is the end of my Week 12 review. Twists and turns, like madness is just the theme of this NFL season. More crazy stuff continues to happen. We don't know what's going to happen next. But if you enjoyed this, please subscribe and please like, as any support is truly appreciated. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for a very special No Huddle Thanksgiving episode.